Mallards, it is Friday, and tonight was the opening night for Bleeding Hearts Club. The show went incredibly well, and we're almost sold out for tomorrow, but I'm actually not here to talk about our show. I am here to talk about a different show. I had the opportunity to go to a Candle House Collective show over the last 2 days, and no, it is not Lenox Mutual, although I do have 4 more Lenox Mutual calls scheduled over the next few weeks, so I will for sure be catching you up on my adventures there. Instead, this is an older Candle House show that they've brought back. It is called Collect Call, and the premise is that you get a call from an inmate on death row. So the show starts with you saying, you know, this is a collect call from a prison in Texas. If you agree to accept the charges, say I accept. And it's 2 phone calls. The first call is an hour, and then the following day you get a 10-minute call. And it centers around this guy named Andy who is on death row. And in the first call, he's just sort of telling you his side of the story. He fesses up to being a murderer, says he did it, that he's not trying to tell you he's not guilty. That's not why he called. He just wants somebody to hear his side of the story. And through that call, you interact and talk and sort of understand his relationship with death, his relationship with love, and sort of what led him to eventually killing a prison guard, which is what landed him on death row. And it was really emotional, very engaging. The performer is very talented, and it's interesting how naturally that conversation flows. Like, obviously I threw myself into knowing that that's who I was going to talk to. I was going to have a genuine conversation and try to be open and caring and understanding. And I could have gone in a different direction if I'd wanted to, but it was nice to have that sort of immediate understanding. And it was fun for me because I liked providing comfort in a sort of way, and that was really enjoyable. It was also fun for me because I was literally in Disney World when I was doing that call. I was sitting in the firehouse on the call at Magic Kingdom. And that was fun because we talked about that for a little bit too. And it was interesting to engage with like honesty about my real life with this fictional character, which was kind of fun. I once again, for the second time during a phone call show, threw the performer for a loop by being aromantic. It wasn't a problem for me, but it's twice that they have sort of relied on the universality of love, of romantic love and like love at first sight and falling in love to be like, yeah, don't you know what that means? And have both times been surprised when I would go, oh, not really, actually. I've never fallen in love. I don't really, like, I'm not gonna fall in love. That's not how I work. And so it was fun for me to like interact with the performer and see how he would react to this information and how he wove it back into the story, and sort of the understanding that got reflected back at me about that situation, and a realization that maybe love wasn't universal. Like, listening to them realize that in real time too was really fun for me and really interesting. And I've always found that the Candle House performers are very caring and connected with you immediately, and I definitely got that from this show as well. Like, it's interesting that I am talking to a murderer on death row and still getting a lot of that kindness and caring through the interaction that I've gotten in a lot of Candle House shows. And then once you listen to his story, he sort of talks about what you would do with your last day and lets you know that he's on death row and that this is his last day. And over the course of that call, we shared information back and forth, talked about our lives back and forth, and then came up with a plan of what I would do on my last day and what I thought maybe he should do on his last day. And that's sort of where the call ended, the first call. And then I got my second call today, and I thought that this call was going to be either from the prison telling me that he had been executed, but a message had been left for me, or perhaps from him telling me how his last day went and then signing off to go to lethal injection. And it was a little bit of that. Like, he talked about what he did for his last day, whether or not the plan we made worked out. and how he was feeling about facing his own mortality. But spoilers, it then ended with the guards like dragging him away and him screaming that he didn't want to die. And that was just a lot more intense than I had expected it to be, which is not a bad thing. I think the intensity was good. I think it was well done. But then it immediately hangs up on you, and I did feel a little bit of whiplash from that. And this is something that I've found interesting about phone call shows as opposed to some other stuff. And also, we have been thinking about developing phone call shows, and I'm not sure how to deal with this. So a big part of our immersive shows, even when we do the ones online, is we like to leave time afterwards for people to be together, to talk to each other about what they experienced, to talk to performers about what they experienced, and to sort of like contextualize and decompress. And we do that with our online shows too. We leave the main room open so that people can talk. We try and visit with them. And in in-person shows, like, we break the immersion eventually at the end, and then we invite people to stay and talk. And with a phone call show, they just end the call. And so as we develop a show that maybe has this similar sort of jarring conclusion, I just wonder what sort of options there are for aftercare for the audience and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily that I feel like Candlehouse was really lacking aftercare in the show. I just do feel like it was a very jarring ending for me, and it left me very kind of stunned. And I found myself wishing I had somebody to talk it over with. And I can find people who've also been to Candlehouse shows by like reaching out on social media. But it was the first time that I've left the show being like, oh my gosh, like I really wish that there had been something a little bit more than that abrupt ending, because it really, really hit me, which I think is the sign of like a good and impactful show. So I do recommend this show. It is expensive, so be prepared for that. But I do think that it is worth the money you spend. I think that the performer has done an incredible job of putting this particular performance together, and that you will find yourself really, really, really invested if you try this show. And now I'm going to go to sleep because I need to be invested in my own show, which hopefully will sell out tomorrow. I'll see you then.